I've never considered myself a coward. But what happened last summer still makes me shiver every time I hear a rustle outside my window. My parents decided to send me to my grandmother's house in the countryside for a week. A normal thing, right? Fresh air, homemade food, a break from gadgets. If only I knew that this week would turn into a desperate fight for survival. Monday. Everything is perfect. I arrived in the afternoon. Grandma met me on the porch with a warm smile, hugged me, and baked my favorite cherry pies. Everything was as usual. A cozy old house, the smell of dried herbs, old family photos on the walls. We talked until late evening, and I went to bed thinking this was going to be a great vacation. Tuesday. The first red flags, SFX, a slow, heavy floorboard creak. The next morning started fine, but closer to evening, I noticed something off. Grandma was sitting in her armchair, just staring at a blank spot on the wall. Without blinking, for a solid 10 minutes. When I called her name, she flinched, snapped her head toward me, way too fast, like a broken doll, and smiled. Oh, just daydreaming, sweetie. I also noticed she barely touched her dinner, but a package of raw meat that was defrosting on the counter suddenly vanished. She claimed she gave it to a stray dog. I believed her. Wednesday. It's getting worse, SFX. Scratching sound of long nails on hardwood. By Wednesday, I was genuinely uncomfortable. Grandma started avoiding bright light. She drew all the thick curtains, walked around the house on her tiptoes, and kept muttering to herself under her breath. But it wasn't her voice. It was a deep, raspy, guttural bass. When I tried to approach her from behind, she spun around so violently that a loud crack echoed from her neck. Her pupils were dilated, almost covering her entire eyes. She was breathing heavily but tried to act normal again. I wanted to call my parents to pick me up, but my phone had zero signal in this remote area. Thursday. The climax of horror, SFX. Music intensifies, dripping water sound, heavy heartbeat, Thursday night. I couldn't sleep because of the suffocating heat and an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, I heard the heavy thud of the front door opening. I got out of bed and crept to the window overlooking the backyard. The full moon was shining, casting a harsh, pale white light over everything. And that's when I saw her. SFX. Sharp, shocking jump scare sound effect. Grandma was standing in the middle of the yard. Suddenly, her body began to convulse violently. She started contorting, bending, and twisting at impossible, non-human angles. Her arms stretched out, her fingers elongating into wicked claws. I heard the sickening, loud crunch of bones breaking and resetting. She dropped onto all fours, threw her head back, and let out a wild, prolonged, agonizing canine howl. It froze the blood in my veins. This was no longer a human being. Under the moonlight stood a hideous, emaciated creature with pale, peeling skin and starved, feral eyes. And at that exact moment, it snapped its head up and looked straight at my window. The action. Fight for life, SFX. Fast-paced, heavy chase music, rapid breathing. I was paralyzed with fear, but only for a second. The creature leaped straight from the ground onto the wall of the house. I heard its claws tearing through the wooden siding with a horrific scraping sound, scrambling up toward my second-floor window. I bolted into the hallway. There were no locks on the bedroom doors. Where could I hide? Behind me, the sound of shattering glass echoed. It had just broken into my room. The stench of rotten raw meat instantly filled the hallway, chasing me like a physical wave. I flew down the stairs to the first floor, scrambled into the small pantry under the staircase, and slammed the heavy oak door shut, throwing the latch. I held my breath. Heavy, uneven footsteps echoed through the house. Thud thud scrape, thud thud scrape. It was hunting me. Suddenly, everything went dead silent. I thought maybe I was safe. And then, bang! The creature threw its weight against the pantry door. The wood groaned. It began to claw furiously, howling and throwing itself at the door. I held the latch with all my strength, tears streaming down my face, silently saying goodbye to my life. The wood began to splinter, and a long, pale, clawed arm forced its way through a crack, swiping wildly, trying to grab me. SFX, loud car horn blaring, bright headlights cutting through the cracks. Out of nowhere, a loud car horn echoed from the driveway. My parents had decided to come a day early because they couldn't reach me. The creature behind the door let out a frustrated, venomous hiss, followed by rapid thumping, and then the loud smash of a first-floor window. It had fled into the woods. Outro. When my parents walked into the house, they found me curled up in the pantry, sobbing hysterically, my hands bleeding from holding the door shut, surrounded by a completely trashed house. My grandmother was nowhere to be found. And you know what the worst part is? Nobody believed me. I actually developed a dangerously high fever that night due to the extreme shock. My parents called an ambulance, and the doctors convinced everyone that I was just experiencing severe hallucinations caused by the fever, the broken windows and shattered doors. They blamed it on a rabid stray dog or a burglar that I supposedly startled. My grandmother was never found. The police assume she wandered off into the woods and got lost. But I know the truth. And every time I hear a dog howling at night, I lock my windows twice. Because I know she might come back.